Let me ask you to share.
This meeting is being recorded.
As people are still arriving, let me ask you to share in the chat. What's one action you took during Earth Week? And I'm seeing a lot of fun things in the chat already. And while people are putting things in the chat, Christina, do you want to share a few of those slides of, this is the 350 Wisconsin, I shouldn't be the one moderating. Anyone can see, this is that wonderful Earth Day March that the students and the art collective and many people here went to. There's John and Russ. There's Kelly. And we just want to shout out to the art collective for that. There's hundreds of pictures, we won't show them all. I wanted to just say, that we did a lot of the Earth Week actions. A number of them were targeting Chase Bank, as the next slide shows. And the picture shows a little bit of the poetry and prayer action inside Chase Bank. Outside Chase Bank, there was a Puppet Man arts extravaganza, which I'm not going to show because I think maybe there'll be a edited version of a video to show in the future. But we do have don't say hot off the press, but Alicia has finished a cool video of an action asking for a pipeline loan inside Chase Bank. So let's see that video.
Chase Bank seems to have no problem loaning money to big fossil fuel corporations. What if the average person tried to get such a loan using the same kind of reasoning?
Man, we need to expand the use of fossil fuels, but that requires pipelines and that requires money, and this bank won't lend us any money.
That's a good one. Of course they'll lend us money.
Yeah,
Chase
man, I can't believe how
loves
much
us.
money Chase lends us. They're so great.
Excuse me. I couldn't help but overhear you. Did you say that this bank lent you a bunch of money?
Only about hundreds of billions of dollars in the last few years.
Did you say something about a pipeline? Like, how'd you get all that money?
We build pipelines.
Good ones. Big ones.
For fossil fuels. They're the #1 funder of fossil fuel expansion in the United States.
Hey. How can I help you? I'd like to talk to somebody about getting a loan for a pipeline.
About getting a loan?
For a pipeline. For a fossil fuel pipeline.
You don't do those types of loans at all.
You don't. Oh gosh, those billionaire big oil guys right out there said they got a whole bunch of billions of dollars from Chase. Like it just maybe for a short pipeline.
If you want to talk to more people about this,
yeah,
I would encourage you to reach out to our actual teams.
Your teams? Is there a pipeline team or fossil fuel team?
Can you please leave?
All right. Thanks.
Most people know that to avoid the very worst of climate catastrophe, we need to stop using fossil fuels. But some banks keep investing money to expand the use of fossil fuels. Here are the major banks that fund expanding fossil fuel use. Do not bank or use credit cards with them. They'll use your money in ways that are harmful to our shared future.
can we have like hats off to the actors and the videographers? Wasn't that amazing? Okay. I moved. Well, let's go on to our formal start. This was all the warm up for those that arrive at 7 sharp. So let's take a moment to take 2 deep breaths together and reflect on our ties to the land we live on. And in honor of our 2 speakers today, our ties to the waters that surround us. This is a photo of sunrise over Lake Michigan, which I took a couple of days ago. And so as you look at the photo, maybe you can think of a body of water that is close to you. And let's take 2 deep breaths together as you reflect on that. I want to acknowledge that the land where I live, when what we call Madison, is called Dejoke, or the land of 4 lakes in the Ho-Chunk language. That is the language of the Ho-Chunk people who lived here before they were forced to cede the land in the 1830s. And it seems to right to acknowledge not just the lands, but the waters that we treasure. Next slide. So, welcome again to everyone. I'm Julia Isaacs from the monthly meeting team. Our agenda today is we're doing our welcome. In a little bit, we'll be hearing from 2 water protectors in Minnesota, Jami Gaither and Victoria McMillen, and I will introduce them in a minute. And we'll have questions and answers with them. Then we have lots of exciting updates for you and information about upcoming events. Then we will have time around 8:00, a little bit after 8, to welcome newcomers, and we will have time then for more questions and answers with our speaker during our breakout. We want to have lots of good interaction and questions and answers, and as we do this, I want to encourage you to be just as respectful in the Zoom chat as you are in person. That's one of the behaviors we encourage, trying to make an environment that's welcoming and supportive for all. And I think in the chat, we have something about trying to be welcoming to all. I think, oh, before I go on, Christina, you want to say something about May Day?
Yeah, so just building on what Julia was saying, sort of recognizing the waters and the people who've always been here and are still here. It seemed fitting also to just recognize today, because it's May Day, May 1st. This is an important day for labor, immigrant rights, all sorts of kind of groups who are fighting for their rights and safety. And Susan Nossel is going to share in the chat a couple links related to immigrant rights specifically. Those of you who have been in these spaces for a while or come to some of our recent monthly meetings know that this is something that's related to climate, as there's climate refugees now and will probably be more moving into the future. So check those out if you're interested in learning more about some, I think, local organizations that are doing work in that area.
Thank you. I see there's been a request for the link to the video, and Alicia and Diane, is it okay if we put the link to the video in the chat?
Sure.
Sure.
That's fine.
So Kelly, if you can go ahead and put that link in. Okay, well, I want to introduce our speakers. Jami Gaither is a retired Jami, how do I say this? Metallurgical engineer. She's turned climate justice advocate, and she lives right along Enbridge Line 3, which is now called Line 93 in Clearwater County, just a couple of miles north of where the pipeline crosses the Mississippi River headwaters. And Victoria McMillen is of the McGeezy clan, Anishinaabemowin Nakchawanag, and she's a wife and mother of 4 beautiful children. She's making sure the tribe's traditions are passed down to her children as a top priority. And their way of life needs protection in order for them to have a way of life to live. So, Jamie, I think you're going to start, and then Victoria, looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Miigwech. Pojuga kinawia nawin ng bagi ng indunjba namakwa danung gum besho gawa babiganikag minawa besho ishpanomen zagi ganing minawa Enbridge line 393 Tumukamanakwayan Dao Jami Gaither Indigenous. I introduced myself in the language because it's really been a benefit to me, not only to understanding more about the people of this land, but the land herself, and also me. It's a very enlightening language, and I encourage you all to learn a little bit of Ojibwe if you can, or take some time to understand the intricacies of verb-based languages versus noun-based languages. So what I said in Ojibwe is that I come from the Midwest, and I live now in the middle of the forest. I live near White Earth Reservation. I live near Upper Rice Lake, and my husband and I are abutters here to the Line 93 pipeline. We're settlers, but we really are appreciative of the inclusive community that we've encountered here. And today we are going to talk about Waadookawaad Amikwag. Can you see the screen good? All right. So what we're going to talk about today is how this group came to be, what we've discovered, and how we've had success. Nish Ikwewa Gawich Bemosewag East Savannah River. So a little more Ojibwe. This group really came about with 2 women taking a little walk with East Savannah River, and we found some things in the water that just were disturbing, and we knew some of the folks have been monitoring the line for some time, and so we knew that there were concerns. And when they saw this, they called me and they said, what are we going to do about this? So I started calling some people I knew, and we just got together a bunch of folks, drone pilots and hydrologists, geologists. And we're all guided in this work that we're doing to protect water and Manoman and the land and the air by these amazing Anishinaabe cultural teachers who have traditional understanding, who have long experience with the land, and help teach us how to hear her better and to respect her. So how we discovered what we discovered, we had really good luck in that there was a flyover done in this upper corner in November of 2021, about a month and a half after the pipeline started pumping oil. White Earth Reservation, Rise Coalition, Honor the Earth, MN 350, and Sierra Club put together $50,000 plus to do a thermal flyover with a fixed wing aircraft. And they did it over the course of 2 evenings so they could see the definite differences between the water upwelling from the land versus the land. And what they found were so many upwellings, water that was pulled together that never was together, water that was cut apart that used to be together, all kinds of differences in the hydrology. And so they graciously allowed us to use their data. And then we have a team of people now who go out and confirm what we're seeing on the ground. We use thermal drone data to investigate a site. It looks very similar to this kind of work where we can see the differences in the temperature. We can see exactly where we need to go to get some water samples to see what's happening. And that's what's happening in this corner up here. Laura Triplett is there by one of the weir boxes, which is one of the things that Enbridge has used to measure the water pouring from the land. Millions of gallons are coming out of this land. And you can see they've got many, many leaks. So this is just one measurement of many, many locations. We use test meters to check conductivity differences and to measure the temperature of the water. This 47 degrees will tell us that this is groundwater, deep underwater, groundwater from under the ground, oftentimes in confined, that's pulled from confined aquifers. And that tells us whether it's 7 degrees or 70 degrees outside. When that water comes out at 45 degrees, we know that it's deep groundwater. And we use chain of custody to assure that all of our tests are admissible in court should that become necessary. And you can see in this bottom, we're very careful about how we tread on the land. We're very respectful. But we find these really disturbing things like this gray pudding that's coming out of the land in LaSalle Valley. And this is one of the things that we've been really adamant about with Waadookawaad Amikwag is that we want no more harm to the land. And yet we know now that there are pallets of concrete sitting out in LaSalle Valley. As a year and a half after this pipeline started working, they still are trying to remediate the water flow in that area. So what we discovered is lots of sites of concern. We had frac outs from the horizontal directional drilling sites. These are samples that we took in the Mississippi headwaters. One was from far down here on this side. It was above an area that never froze through this winter. It was open, brown, brackish area, about 8 to 10 feet, 8 by 10 feet. And then this one was from a spring on the north side of the corridor, east of the river here. And so we put these samples in to try and understand what are the changes in the land, and we're seeing definite differences in the water quality. I keep saying we never should have talked about a pipeline spill. We should have talked about how construction will destroy your water quality. We have deep aquifer breaches that were reported by the state, Clearbrook, LaSalle, and milepost 1102.5, which we all know is the Fond du Lac breach because it's 400 feet outside the reservation boundary, but Enbridge calls it MP 1102.5. Interestingly, how they use different names. And then Walker Brook is a really sad example of what Waadookawaad has been able to uncover. This is a bottomless hole, is about 4 foot by 6 foot above the Line 93 pipeline in Walker Brook. This was one of the very last places that Enbridge did construction, likely because they knew that this was going to be very problematic and they wanted to have everything else done so that we couldn't say no now. So this hole, it formed from the soil liquefying above the land. It's because Enbridge did not do proper geological understanding of the land to understand what they were dealing with. This site remains unreported by the state to the public. Yet the remediation that Enbridge did was basically to replace the bog with a layer of aggregate and sand because their pipeline was creating a French drain, draining water down the hillside. We went in, Enbridge came out, got all their timber matting out in late February. We went in March 5th and the land is still leaking. So we've also discovered this Fond du Lac breach site. You can see that Enbridge constantly says on all these breaches, Enbridge says, we fixed it. And then later it's not fixed. So on April 7th, the Fond du Lac FAQ sheet says that as of April 7th, 2022, the groundwater had stopped, flow had stopped. Yet this is March 5th, 2023. We remain with a ton of infrastructure and obvious remediation issues still existing in the land. So what we've done has really brought us a lot of progress, and we're going to continue to take samples and continue to report to the public on what's happening. But some of the things that we have done that are critical to folks like you are we've stood up and written letters of opposition about Enbridge's continued projects. Specifically in April last year, we wrote a letter on the Bad River reroute, and then in October, we opposed the tunnel proposal. We actually went in person and testified as well at St. Ignace regarding this project. The memorandum of agreement that we sent to the Minnesota AG and agencies back in October really asked them to come to terms with us on what we need to do to hold Enbridge accountable. And yet they really denied a lot of what we asked, but they did agree to meet with us. So we're currently meeting as a team with the post-construction team for the state agencies from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the Department of Natural Resources. We've had about 6 or 7 meetings, several large group meetings and a few technical meetings that are smaller with the agencies thus far. And we got early support in 2022 with letters from Congresswomen Betty McCollum and Ilhan Omar supporting our request for the US EPA and Army Corps to come in and look at what the state is doing, because they are violating not only NEPA, but MEPA. They are definitely not upholding the water standards that are required by the Clean Water Act. In November of last year, we did a large webinar. We had a couple hundred people attend the afternoon session and then 100 people at the Q&A. So the public has a high interest level in what we're talking about. And I think it's because we're really not hearing it from mainstream media. Mainstream media has been relatively silent on the work that we're doing, although there is a lot of excitement. Every time we go to an event like this, the public is very interested in what we have to say. And to be honest, the agencies are very interested too. Enbridge is not telling them the truth, and we're giving them a lot of insights that they did not have. But we did get approached last month, and just recently did some work with a mainstream news outlet that we hope will come in May with a big story about this. And then just yesterday, our website went live. And so we're going to have a lot better places for you to access the data about all these places and see more about what's happening. There'll be a place where you can subscribe to and get updates as we move forward. So at this point, I'd really like to turn it over to Victoria McMillan because she will be able to give you a lot more insights into what we've learned from this process and what it means to the people of the land. Miigwech.
Bonjour and then away Margaret Duke, Mikizikoin Indigenous College, Ojibwe Mung, Indigenous Kikana Minimuye Yains, Mikizin, Mikizin, goodness, I'm having a hard time tonight. Mikizin Indu Dame, Ingu Albanese, Nagacho Nindun Jaba. I'm from the Fond du Lac Band, Victoria McMillan. My Ojibwe name is Mikizikwe, and I also have a nickname of Minimuye Yains, and that means the little old young lady or someone that holds things together. And so that's something that I regularly do for my community. I hold things together, and I also try to live up to my clan responsibility of teaching others about important things and educating about our culture. So I've been getting in with Waadookawaad for the last year and helping organize things and just help out with some cultural aspects of things. My husband worked in natural resources for about 15 years on Fond du Lac, so he has a lot of knowledge, and then he grew up out by the ditch banks where we're talking about where this breach is on Fond du Lac. And so he has a lot of that traditional ecological knowledge that they talk about. So the team and us, we all meet and we talk about how things are going, and then I'll debrief with my husband some and then bring a lot back to the team. And we also access many other elders and other traditional ecological knowledge carriers in our work. Next slide, Jean. Yeah, so we've been meeting with the DNR and the MPCA. It's been pretty interesting. We have large group in person and we have tech teams on Zoom. So we meet quite often, at least every couple weeks it's been happening. We discuss sites of concern, water and thermal data, cultural and geological and hydrological impacts, and more. Learning about policy, process, and procedures of the agencies, along with how they understand and carry out tribal consultation. Tech teams deeply discuss geologic and hydrologic areas of impact and come to an agreement on what is truly happening on the land, which is, I think, the most interesting and most important part of our work, because so many dollars have gone into this research, so many man hours, volunteering, and woman hours gone into volunteering to try to ground truth this situation that we're kind of being spoon-fed some lies in the media about. Construction is not done according to the Minnesota DNR. It cannot be deemed completed until the corridor is restored back to the natural condition it was before the pipe construction started. Yeah, we'll go to the next one. Another thing that's really concerning that we've learned is water regulation is spread across the agencies. It's ineffective and cumbersome to anybody that wants to know anything about it that isn't in the system. So on tribal, with tribal governments, we have natural resource departments, and those usually have all our water protection and regulation under one roof. All these people can talk to each other. We're pretty limited too, but I mean, we're all talking together and working with each other. The Minnesota Department of Health has jurisdiction over our water aquifers, and really they take direction from the DNR on whether to act or not, from what I've been hearing. DNR covers the lakes, groundwater, and wetlands, and the MPCA covers streams and rivers. So whenever Enbridge, like MSR1 and MSR2, the Mississippi River crossings, when they fracked out there, the MPCA is in charge of that. Whereas the frack out or the aquifer breach by Fond du Lac is a wetland. It's affecting our groundwater and our rice lakes, so the DNR has more to do about that. And the Minnesota Department of Health has chosen not to step in. I guess I remember hearing from the direction of the DNR, they were told not to worry about it. But the thing is that when I'm starting to study the geology around Fond du Lac, there's been tons of studies over the years. And there's about 6 different studies or so that talk about our area out there by our rice lakes. And they're saying that the aquifer breach is fixed, and it most definitely isn't. I mean, March 5th, there are pictures taken of the site, and there's water coming down the corridor when it's freezing outside. And it's going down the corridor for quite a ways, and there's tons of those well monitoring things out there, and it's just really disturbing. So yeah, I'm studying a lot more. We're gonna get to know a lot more about Fond du Lac, but that aquifer breach, it's not a confined, or I can't remember how they talked about it, but what I do know is that this whole aquifer around us is really shallow. It's only a few, like maybe 6-7 feet under the ground in some places, and that's our drinking water. That's the Fond du Lac Band's drinking water. And from what I can see from the flow maps of the aquifer, the elevation just gets lower from the aquifer breach onto the Fond du Lac Reservation. So our whole aquifer and anything they do to try to fix that aquifer breach up there affects our drinking water on Fond du Lac and the surrounding communities around us. Let's head to the next slide. The biggest, most concerning thing we're seeing is that there's only a handful of people in the DNR and MPCA really in charge of monitoring the pipeline. Large projects regulate, monitor, and remediate problems on their own. So Bar Engineering works in between Enbridge and state agencies, but they're pretty much paid for, I believe, by Enbridge. But I'm not sure about that. Jamie might know more about that. But Bar Engineering, they're not reporting any of these frack outs or anything either, and they should also be looking at that. So they're really depending largely on Enbridge data collection and sharing. And agencies have limited staff and resources. They have independent environmental monitors, but there's approximately only 8 in the field a day assessing 337 miles of pipeline corridor, and we don't even know what their action plan is. We don't know how they're assessing any of these breach sites, if they're covering the entire corridor every month or week, or we have no idea how they actually monitor the pipeline. Yep. So one thing Waadookawaad really likes to do is empower our community members. We're all volunteers, retired scientists and hydrologists, geologists, engineers, and then there's some younger of us that are pitching in, volunteering, doing what we can to do field site visits and help facilitate and organize teach outs, different things, draft letters to senators and other legislators and tribal members. So we want to, people want a space led by community members. We want to be gathering our own data to help in the whole fight of everything, because the state really doesn't have as many resources as we think or hope, and it's just not an ideal thing. So the more help they have from us, the better. So let's think about, doing observations, getting your families and friends together, going out, checking the line, walking the lines that exist already in the corridor, the planned corridor areas, and really documenting all the plants, all the animals, how things are looking, testing the water and getting baseline data, We use infrared drones, and they're not your everyday drone from Walmart. They're a few $1,000s. But if you can invest in one and really start watching the line on your guys' end, you might really be able to get your state agencies to start doing some actions to help protect your wetlands and waters and lakes and wild rice. Yeah, so gather volunteers, interns, look for grant opportunities. Check out your universities and tribal colleges, find your resources and use them. Bring people together. Yeah, just do some regular data collection. We have an Excel sheet. We like to keep everything, all our site visits and what data was collected, who went out there. We do have policy and protocol kind of for our data collection. You know, like there's chain of command, there's a whole plan drafted by another agency that does ecological reviews and things like that. And they drafted this for us, this whole plan on how to go about this in a very legal and science respective way so that everything that we do can really matter some in every place that we bring it. Seek out and respect Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge. Regular reporting to your tribal governments, boards, commissions, DNR, PCA, local and state, federal government people, etc. Anybody else you can think of that has some kind of weight or pull. I know that there's lots of, when the new governor gets in, you know, they appoint all their commission chairs and they have all these commissions that really do make the policy and the laws that happen. And those commissions are really important to find out who's on those commissions that affect pipeline infrastructure and wetland protection, and then making sure you're always in their ear too. And then check out the treaties, because the treaties are going to protect us all and keep the water clean and all of our access to hunt, fish, and gather protected. We'll go to the next one. So we want to talk about tribal consultation because the state is terrified to talk about tribal consultation. They have one designated person in each agency that is allowed to do tribal consultation. And it's not what any of us think it is. You know, when you go in for a consultation for a doctor's appointment, you're going to get to know everything that could happen with that procedure. You're going to know the ups and downs, the goods and bads, all of it, right? But that's not quite what's happening here. We have them saying, you have to come to the table in a spirit of progress. So you don't get to say no to this project, but you get to tell us where all your cultural sites are, all your sacred sites, and we will try to leave them alone. Or we will pay you if we end up messing them up. And same with our wild rice. We can say, you know, this is where our important medicine grows or our important foods grow. But it's still up to them to really respect that, or they just know, oh, this is going to cost us some money. And so I have some links in here that help you see some of the statutes and different things on tribal consultation, so you can read it for yourselves and kind of see how much of it's a false thing. And then they're only talking to our RBC members, our Reservation Business Committee members. And those are 5 people that may be elected by our band members, but this constitution and this government structure does not belong to us. It's an IRA, Indian Reorganization Act structure. And so the BIA many years ago, like 1932, 1934, is pretty solid in every reservation by 1934, but they decided that they wanted to reorganize the Indians because they didn't like the way they had to do negotiations with them. It took too long. So they wanted to shorten it up and change the way we govern ourselves. And that took away the voice of a lot of important people in our communities. It took away the time it took to inform everybody very well about what was happening, what could happen, and to allow for input coming back. And so we really need, and we're self-determination now. We're allowed to reclaim our traditional ways, yet there's still federal policy that says we have to adhere to the IRA. We don't get to self-determine what consultation is. And I think that is one of the most concerning things about it. And that's many of these tribal consultation documents. If you do a Freedom of Information Act, you'll see it's pretty sad what they have on there. It's really not much, because they're really not getting the input they need from 5 people, when these traditional ecological knowledge holders usually aren't involved in politics. But we can go to the next slide. Okay, so if you want to learn more, we're on tour. So we're if you have other people that you think we need to talk to and teach to, we love to share what we're doing and make sure other people are empowered to do whatever they can. So we have a link to our email there. We're on YouTube, so you can see all our other videos and share them. And then we also have a live website. So feel free to check that out. It just went live, so we're still working out some of the kinks, but we hope to be able to engage with community a lot more through that in the future. I think we have a sign-up email update list on there you can sign up for. So if you want to stay updated, that's a good way to get there. And then we do post notices on Twitter. We don't have a Facebook yet, but we'll get there maybe. And then just so you know what our current goals are, we just had a speaking engagement the other day, and one of the questions in the crowd was, what are our current goals? And I think 4 of the main current goals that our group has is, continuing evidence gathering at more and more sites of concern. They've only reported a few sites, and there's more. There's way more. And we're honestly scared to tell them all of what sites we do have until we can get like a do no more harm policy instated. Because even the DNR and MPCA are saying that the only thing that they can do is go out there, lay timber matting just like Enbridge, destroy the wetlands some more, and then throw a bunch of these monitoring wells deep into the ground just to monitor the water levels in these sites. So really they're just doing more harm than good trying to deal with these sites. I think there's a lot more hands on deck. We have plenty of universities that have, and there's, I don't even know, tons of studies on our wetlands and our wild rice and how everything works. And a lot of that was ignored during the commenting period prior to construction. But now it's time, if we're going to fix what's happened, we need all hands on deck. But educate and empower communities with our work, share our findings with state, federal, and tribal agencies in an effort to bring no more harm to sites, and bring information forward to legislators to help create better water regulation and tribal consultation. And some other things we've been helping with is we're trying to help with the lobby and Prove It First. We're helping with the talon resistance, and I'm sure the group could use some help understanding the effects of sulfide mining and any kind of successes Wisconsin may have had with their sulfide mining history. We're also deeply in the effort to help stop Line 5. After what we've seen with Line 3, we can't afford that to happen to our relatives over there either. So supporting tribes and treaty rights, and trying to create some sort of bill based on the Line 3 experience to help protect from future pipelines. Keep talking to tribal, state, and federal legislatures. So those are things that you can help with as well. And I think we're about time. Do we have another slide or? Oh yeah, that's just
Yeah, it'll be more future stuff if you guys want to talk about it in the breakout. I think we're hitting our time too.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Jamie. Let's take down the slides. And maybe if you can spotlight Victoria and Jamie, Christina, if you wouldn't mind doing that. We have a bunch of questions in the chat. We'll ask you 2 or 3 of them now, and then we'll have more time in the breakouts. I think I'm gonna start with this question. And I swear this is not just because it was asked by my husband, but such an important question. Oh, now where is the question? Given the
Is it about the horrific experience you've had here?
experience with the horrific damages from line 3, what advice can you give to folks fighting line 5? That's the first question I'm going to ask.
You want to start, Victoria?
Oh, you know, all that pre-data, talking to tribes, supporting tribes. I mean, I know it's, I don't know, it's just when it comes to tribal consultation, demanding more. And then being that ally voice. Because if the allies are saying respect treaty rights, then you guys are more constituents to your legislatures than I feel that we are as band members, being dual citizens. Or I'm not a band member, I'm a first descendant. But other band members, they just don't have the clout. Like it's almost like we're a gray area if we're even a citizen or not, even though we have citizenship. But when allies speak up for treaty rights, it makes a huge difference. And it can really help the fight against Line 5. The stuff with Bad River and trying to reroute it around the bottom of their reservation is like a direct kick in the face to every elder there that's been working to try to get the rice back there. My husband helped seed the sloughs out there years ago, and they finally got a good crop this last year. Bad River's been struggling to get their rice crop in a good way so that they can feed their people for generations. And they finally have good rice stands, and they're already being under attack by this Line 5.
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, this is really critical and I kind of said it during the presentation, focusing on the tar sand spill. People push that into the future. That's for their grandchildren to worry about. We need to talk about how construction destroys your water quality. And I think this message, if we can get a bigger public voice to what Waadookawaad is finding, and more mainstream media talking about this, and you guys sharing about it, it's really going to help people understand these are the consequences of listening to Enbridge's lies. These are the consequences to, they tell you HDD is the safest and it doesn't have any, it's the safest way, it's the best. They don't tell you it has a 50% failure rate. And for Line 3, Enbridge's failure rate was 63%. 63% of their crossings fracked out. So these are the things. And then they tell you what they put in the water, but when you do the testing, you find different things. So the DNR or the MPCA confirmed the presence of Power Pack L in the Mississippi River headwaters down the road here. Those frackouts, they confirmed chemicals that were not allowed to be in the water. And yet MPCA literally gaslighted the people who were talking about these frackouts and saying, oh, those aren't even happening. Those people don't know what they're doing. They were gaslighting water protectors who had physical evidence of what was happening on the ground at the time. This is how the state gets coerced and entranced by these extractive industry people. And we need to, I think the biggest thing that I feel is we're pushing hard on the DNR and PCA, get real scientists from this land to talk to you about what's going on. Don't listen to those guys who are trying to sell you a project, because they're going to tell you all the good stuff and they're not going to give you any of the warnings. And we've got a growing body of evidence that shows that neither Enbridge nor the state agencies did due diligence in preparing to put this pipeline in the ground here.
I think we have, that's helpful. I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to combine 2 questions here, asking what type of political opposition do you encounter and how do you deal with that? And also, do you have opposition with members of some tribes who support Enbridge's efforts?
You want me to go first or you want to go first, Victoria?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag, really, because we have Red Lake and White Earth that are very on board and very receptive. We haven't quite engaged with Fond du Lac directly yet, but we will soon. The thing is that Fond du Lac, back when we had a different chairperson and secretary treasurer on our reservation business committee, they signed away our rights to ever speak against Enbridge. They signed away our rights to ever say no to another Enbridge project ever again. And then the payment for the agreement was never disclosed to any band member. And that was the first time that anything like that had ever happened on the reservation. And we still don't know how much they got for allowing this line 393 to come through. It is very terrifying. It's been really bad on Fond du Lac to try to oppose the pipeline. And I guarantee you that not many people know that the aquifer breach is still leaching. It's very remote land that is very hard to get to. And, I have this study, and it's from the USGS. And they have like almost 12 studies in here that proves that uncontrolled aquifer flow onto the land kills wild rice, and they're allowing it to continue. And the way that I'm reading these maps in here is that it's flowing straight towards all of our rice lakes. Mud Lake didn't have any rice on it. They call it Miller Lake on the maps. Didn't have any rice on it last year. Dead fish, barely any rice. Rice portage, sparse rice. And we've already been under attack since the early 1900s trying to dewater our wild rice lakes. And it honestly just feels like the same coming of another Calvary. It's just a corporation. And they're going to drain our rice lakes. And last year on Fond du Lac, we weren't allowed to rice on our lakes. First year ever, one of the elders said around here. First year ever, they didn't allow for subsistence ricing. And me and my husband had to go off-res and find lakes that we'd never riced in before to try to rice and gather some. And we barely ended up with enough to feed our family until the next ricing season. And now we're finding that the aquifer is still flowing out onto the land right into our rice lakes and changing the pH level and the nutrient level of all the water around the wetland. And there's nothing being done about it. Fond du Lac still has their FAQ sheet saying it's fixed, not another word. And I just don't, and I can't say that they're totally informed. They're 5 people running multiple businesses, human services, casinos, social services, treatment centers. I mean, they have their jobs cut out for them. And that's why we need more right to self-determination, more right and time to reclaim who we are in our clan systems and our way of governance before being inundated with another mine or another pipeline or another thing that just totally disrupts who we are and creates divides between our people when we're trying to find middle ground.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Victoria talks about the middle ground, because one of the big ways that Enbridge won here in Minnesota is they divided us into the tree huggers and the pro pipeline people. And they divided communities, they divided families, literally. And it's been really interesting as we go in, the homeowner who lives near this Walker Brook site has become a good, close associate and will give me information about what's happening at that site when people go in, and is very concerned about what's happening in the land. The landowner across the street is admitting stories about how they've damaged his equipment and refused to reimburse him. So people are recognizing that all these stories that we foretold about what Enbridge was going to be about and how they were going to treat us once they got what they needed have really come to light for a lot of people. And we're finding more and more allies, even in those folks who originally were supporting Enbridge projects.
Well, I have a hard job here of wanting to keep on hearing more, but wanting to take time for our other updates and announcements, so that then we'll come back, those who come to the breakout session Q&A. Thank you very much, Jamie and Victoria, for sharing this very sobering message. I will ask Christina to put up the slides. Oh, I'm sorry, Christina, you're right. I'm asking for John to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And I just want to reiterate, Jamie and Victoria, thank you so very much for sharing your story. And I am so sorry. Such a tragedy. And clearly your work is such an important lesson for us as we work towards stopping line fine. So thank you for joining us to allow us to hear your story. It is so important and so timely. So I want to shift to announcing something which I think is actually really exciting. I'm really pleased to share with you all that coming up at the end of this summer, there'll be a transition in 350 Wisconsin leadership. Stephanie Robinson and Emily Park will be coming on as co-executive directors, and correspondingly, I will transition at that time to being a member of the board of directors. My time as executive director has been one of the greatest gifts in my career and in doing work on climate change and justice. And I really look forward to significant continued involvement with 350 Wisconsin. Furthermore, both Emily and Stephanie come with years of work on climate change and involvement with 350 Wisconsin. They bring complementary skills and knowledge bases, and I can really very personally attest to their ability to work together to get a job done in a productive and really truly enthusiastic manner. Having co-executive directors will be a great addition to our distributed work structure, and I know that they have what it takes to be productive and adaptable during this critical time of taking action on climate justice and climate change. So really excited. Stay tuned for more details. Probably a number of you saw the email from yesterday. We're putting the link to that email in the chat, so you can, if just in case you missed it, you can read that email. And I just want to close with a big thanks to Stephanie and Emily for stepping up to take on this role. I think we have lots of great things to look forward to. So thank you, Julia, for the time.
Well, thank you, John, for all you've done, as it says in the email, to get us where we are. We're an exciting point, and the work continues. Can you bring up the slides now, Christina? We have a couple of different, and Christina, you have some kind of black things on your screen, but maybe there's nothing you can do about it. There, that's got rid of one of them. That's great. The first, I was going to have our own tar sands team that's working to try to stop line 5 and others go first. I don't think I've met Ashlyn, but Ashlyn, are you the one that's going to do our updates?
Yep, that's me. Thanks for the time, and thanks to Julie and Victoria for sharing all that knowledge with us. It's very helpful to inform our fight, and it's just really nice to see what's going on still up in Minnesota. So yeah, I was going to spend a few minutes trying to get some petitions signed and give people a few options to do something, right away, just while all the energy is there. So I've got some, yeah, you can see in the chat, Jamie just sent, oh wait, sorry, give me a sec.
We'll put it in the chat, Ashley.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
And maybe tell us which of the 3 you encourage us to do, because I think we don't have time for more than one.
Right. Yeah. So I put Governor Evers' number here in case anyone wanted to call. I know it can be kind of intimidating to call a representative. So maybe save it for time when you're, extra amped up. But it's always handy to give some sort of personal relation to what you're asking Governor Evers to do, which would be to not provide Enbridge with the permits that they're asking for on the state land for the Line 5 pipeline. So, this is really our chance to stop it now and get in the ear of a pretty sympathetic politician to our concerns. And as Victoria and Julie mentioned, bringing up treaty rights and advocating for our brothers and sisters who have been here far longer than us as settlers is, I think, one of the best tactics. But again, just choose what really speaks to you. It's always good to put your own spin on it. Yeah, the easy stuff to do is the petition to tell the Canadian ministers to stop misusing the 1977 Transit Pipeline Treaty. That's through the Communities United by Water website. So there's a link where you can sign it and let Canada know that they should be abiding by the Michigan governor's decision to, tell them they can't keep pumping oil through the Straits of Mackinac, and that they shouldn't be using this pipeline treaty as a loophole to get around that mandate from the Michigan governor. And then there's another link there where you can, yeah, I'll send the links afterwards. There's quite a few of them, but you can get some signs and bumper stickers. And then there's a Line 5 coalition working group that you can email Jadine about if you're interested in getting involved, as well as the 350 Wisconsin tar sands working group. So yeah, let us know if you want to get involved. And then in-person things this summer, quite booked. There's going to be an event that 350 is really involved with planning. And there's going to be some hiking, food sharing, story sharing, looking for endangered species. From the talk we had earlier, it just seems like, documenting observations is really key at this stage, and as we go on in our fight. So we're really excited to kind of kick that off, and definitely feel energized from hearing about all of the data that they've been able to gather in so-called Minnesota. And then later on in June is the Red Cliff Powwow, and there are a few other events in July. These can all be found on the Communities United by Water website as well. And then just the last slide has some updates on Line 3. Most of it's kind of what's already been spoken about. But there is still a lawsuit going on for the Firelight Treaty case, which I believe is when they set up camp right by the headwaters of the Mississippi. And so just keep an eye on that, see kind of how that turns out. Maybe good to just learn from history and try to not to repeat it, but also try to use successful tactics that we've seen other people use. And then they've already shared the Waadookawaad links, so I won't repeat that there. But there's also a Sierra Club petition to hold Enbridge accountable for their environmental damage. So that's another easy sign. And then yeah, you can also sign up to get information about people who are facing Line 3 charges still. So lots of options here for you all. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but if you maybe got 1 out of 10 of those links, we're getting somewhere. So I'll pass it along then.
Thank you, Ashlyn. It's great. I know with Phyllis having left, everyone has big shoes to fill, and it's just wonderful to get all this information. Stephanie, would you want to speak about the fundraising events?
Yeah, I'm actually going to turn it over to Mariah. She's going to talk to us about the events tonight. Thanks.
Yes, hi everybody. Just two quick events to share. One of them is kind of a save the date, and one of them is coming up really quick. So we hope to see a lot of you at Gallery Night. That is this Friday from 5 to 9 p.m. The address and all the other information's on there, but this is a really great way to support members of the art collective and really show your support. And it's also just sounds like it's going to be a really cool event. So we'll have artwork from Terry and Richard, and a portion of the proceeds will help support 350 Wisconsin. So that's really cool and awesome as well. So we really, really encourage you to show up, and we think it'll be a great event. And then the second event is just to save the date for Pizza for the Planet. We've done this for a couple of years now. Ian's is really a great supporter of our work and things like that. They also donate to our Giving Tuesday events, excuse me. And so Wednesday, June 28th from 5 to 9 p.m., we are going to have a fundraiser event at Ian's Pizza, Garver. The more people that participate, the more money that we can receive through the percentage that they donate to us. So mark that on your calendar. We'll have lots of other reminders being sent out about that as the date gets closer, but it's a wonderful thing to look into. So thanks.
Thank you, Mariah. Who from the Community Climate Solution team is going to make the next announcement?
Well, I can do that. This is Susan Miller. One of the things that Kathy Kuntz from the Office of Energy and Climate Change at Dane County refers to as our superpower is our action participation list. And my guess is that not everybody who's in the room this evening is a member of the action participation list. It's easy to join. What it means to be a member of the action participation list is that you are really interested in climate issues. You're interested in how you can impact local policy, and you are willing to take a few minutes every now and then to respond to a message from one of our community working groups that asks you and gives lots of information about how you can send a message or comment to one of the policy bodies near you, whether it's a county or a city or a town or whatever. So what you have to do is go to 350 Wisconsin, Wisconsin's website, go over to the teams link, scroll down to Community Climate Solutions team, and there you'll have an opportunity to join. Thank you.
I think the next slide will show what you just said, and we'll put a link in the chat.
Okay, great. I don't see that next slide. There it is.
Right,
Okay.
that's why I
good.
said next slide. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Anyways, if you go to Community Climate Solutions team, that's how you can fill that out. Okay, Art Collective is the next slide. I think that Russ, are you doing this announcement or Diane?
I'm doing this first part, yes. And so you can see the first thing on the list there is the next meeting of the Art Collective is this Wednesday. Contact Diane or myself if you'd like the Zoom link for that. We'll be kind of reviewing what we've been doing and think about what's been working and what hasn't been as working as well. But one of the other things we'll be doing is talking about the idea that one of our next adventures involves singing and that you're all invited to be a part of it. Amanda Loricello is heading up this musical project, which involves making a video of an old song that we've changed the lyrics to so as to reflect our solidarity with the Indigenous water protectors of the Northland. We'll give the resulting video to the water protectors up north. There's also some amazing choreography, body percussion that goes with this, but you don't have to learn the body percussion. I, for one, find it very challenging, but if you can learn the song, that would be great. So there will be a link to the song and a link to learning the body percussion in the chat. Amanda is also going to, if we click on the link here, you can learn the song. We hope you'll take this link with you home and practice some harmonies or practice the melody. Go ahead and play it.
Protect all the water, will we? Protect all the water now. Protect all the water, will we? Time's a wasting, let's do it now.
Great. So then the last thing on this list is storage of the wheels for the chariot of the Great Turning that was in the parade. These wheels are 7.5 feet in diameter, and we're having a challenging time finding storage spots for them. We have a lead on one, but we really need a spot for 4 of the wheels because we actually have 4 of these giant wheels, and we want to make something really phenomenal with those 4 wheels. If anyone has a corner of a warehouse or a garage space that you're not using that can handle that size of a wheel, get in touch with us. And I think Diane had something else to add.
Next slide.
I just want to remind folks that there's another month of an exhibit, Democracy, at the Overture Center galleries. Our art collective, Beth Reset, is the curator for that. And it's quite something because she'd been thinking about that and starting to work on it before the pandemic. Different art with democracy, and then with all of the things that happened from 2020 on, it's really, really powerful. So it's I think goes through June 4th. She chose 3 videos from 350 Wisconsin Art Collective, but there's a lot of really incredible art there. So I encourage everyone to check that out.
Thank you, Diane. And Nikki, you're going to share who the volunteer of the month is, as we can see.
Yes, absolutely. So our volunteer of the month for May is Alicia Schoberg. Yay, Alicia! And Alicia is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what she does. She is a professional videographer and editor, and she donates her time and talents to us all the time. So the videos that you see that are super well cut and done, Alicia usually had all of or a large hand in those. She collaborates frequently with our fundraising and communications team, as well as the art collective and a variety of other teams. She has produced an annual video for Giving Tuesday for the last several years. One of the first videos that she did with us, which is Love Song to the Earth, was from 2020 about voting and loving the earth, was now has been viewed over 10,000 times, I believe, and was featured nationally by 350.org. She has not only been doing videos of art collective actions and marches and protests, but she's also recently been helping us with videos for grant projects. We did one for the election that we're currently in the middle of. So there is so many things that she has done, and it's gorgeous because all of the things that we do are so important. And it is also important that we're able to get it out there. And if we weren't able to get it out there, our impact would be measurably less. What Alicia does makes our impact incredibly better. She makes sure that these things that we do have reach more people and reach more hearts and minds. I can tell you that several of her videos have legitimately made me cry. They are very, very good. So thank you so much, Alicia, for everything that you do. We really, really appreciate you and everything that you've worked on and continue to work on with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Alicia. Next slide. Emily?
Hi, everybody. So as we talked about a little bit earlier, when we were talking about lines 3 and 5, our amazing tar sands organizer, Phyllis Hasbrook, has taken a well-deserved retirement. And so we're going to be celebrating Phyllis and everything she's done for our organization and her amazing career as an organizer in so many different fields on Sunday, May 21st from 3 to 6 p.m. It's going to be an outdoor event at Garner Park. The address is there on the screen, and it will be a community meal. So if anybody feels like they want to bring a dish or a drink to pass around and to share with the community, we would welcome that, but you certainly don't have to if you would rather not. So I have just in the chat, I put a link if you would like to RSVP and sign up. And if you want to bring a dish, there's a place where you can just write that in what you're bringing. And if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Maddie, and our email addresses are there on the slide.
Thank you, Emily. So we're going to wrap up quickly here. Our next meeting, the monthly meeting team wants to let you know, it'll be June 5th, first Monday, 7 p.m. It'll be a hybrid meeting. So those of you within driving distance of Madison, we'd love to see you in person at the Friends Meeting House. We'd also love to see everybody on Zoom. It's completely up to you. It is our annual meeting. The monthly meeting is an annual meeting in this case, and we'll have elections for the Board of Directors and Coordinating Council. The elections will not take the full meeting. We'll have a full range of interesting program. And there's information there about how if you want to vote in that election. I want to alert you that the July meeting will not be the first Monday because of July 4th. We're postponing it till July 10th. It will be a regular meeting, but our August meeting will be a summer picnic in person at Madison at that same park. The details will be coming out.